Hello, Mr. Frost. This is Ben with Amtex Equipment with the second part of the video. In this video, we're going to pretty much concentrate on your machine rather than the whole entire system, because the main area of your concern will be the services, doing the services, and also getting familiar with your machine. What it consists of, what are the switches, what are all these regulators, gauges, and what have you, where they come handy. Now, if you notice again, we have marked the floor same dimension as your Isuzu truck. Starting about the machine, we can start from the very simplest part of the machine, which is the recovery tank. This is where your recovered water, basically the water that you're collecting from the areas where you're cleaning carpet, tile and grout, furniture, rugs, and what have you, collects. And as the water rises, it's going to get to the point that the tank becomes full, and the tank needs to shut down. Now, we're going to get into the pumping. We're going to get into the tank in a little bit, but after so many hours of working with this unit, this tank is start getting so contaminated to the point that it's going to start having odors, which needs to be cleaned up. Now, if you remember again, we have marked the area. So this one is going to be your back wall. Basically, this is where the driver seat's going to be, and this is where the passenger is going to be. So in order to get to the recovery tank to do the cleanup, because it's an enclosed cargo bay of your Isuzu, the best way is to get from the back, to get in from the back. And if you remember in the previous video, I did mention this opening, the way we designed it for a person or operator that wants to do the cleanup or services for the tank, to simply step over these hoses and go through. Again, like I said, we're going to have a wall here and wall behind me, which is your cargo bay. In order to get to the tank, it's really extremely simple. This is your filtration box, which you're having your filtration box separate from the recovery tank. It allows you to have the maximum capacity of the tank to be used compared to some of the design that you do have the filter inside. Now, coming back to the subject, as far as removing the filter out of this filter box for rinsing and cleaning is simple. You do have a union here, which is hand tight, and as I loosen this ring and push it back, I'll be able to grab the elbow here and grab my hose. As I'm pulling them apart, they should separate. Look, they come out. This is your stainless steel filter, which is uncloggable. In other words, it doesn't get clogged, but of course eventually it's going to get contaminated and dirty. They need to be rinsed. By putting this filter away, you'll be able to simply clean inside of this filter box. Bring the camera closer. By rinsing it with the water, you do have a drainage hose at the bottom. Once you install the machine, a 1 1/4 inch hole needs to be drilled through the floor of your Isuzu truck for this hose to pass through. So every time you clean this box, you don't have water building up inside. And of course, when the machine is running, and if there is any water starts spitting out of this window, bring it here, and it start filling the box. Because there is a check valve here, let me get my flashlight going. This box can self-drain itself. There is a check valve here, which basically shows the flow of water towards the hose. So by having this hose drilled through the floor, if there's any water builds up in here because of driving or the water moving back and forth or any kind of foam buildup, the box itself automatically drains itself because of this check valve. This check valve can only open one way. And as soon as the machine starts running, with the suction, it shuts. So when you start cleaning inside of this filter box with fresh water, the water simply drains below your vehicle. Now, the second part that needs cleanup is going to be the recovery tank itself. Since you're standing behind the tank, it's really simple to remove the top, even though you do have this hose in your way, but the hose is flexible. In order to remove the recovery tank by the operator, this hose should be lifted upward. As it's moving upward, you'll be able to lift the top off and push it forward and then lift it. Now, let's go look inside of the tank. Again, after so many hours, the inside of this tank is contaminated, start having odor, which needs to be rinsed with the fresh water. But if you notice, there's 2 float switches in here. one upper one and one lower one. The upper one is the simplest one, which basically shuts down the engine if the tank is full. As this rises, it will shut the spark to the spark plugs on the engine, and of course your engine shuts off. Now you know your tank is full. And the second one at the bottom, it comes handy when you're going to be doing your automatic pump out. Just to give you a quick review of how it's done, let's say turn the key on here. As the system comes alive, when you turn the automatic pump out, which is abbreviated as APO, automatic pump out, the pump out gets energized with electricity, but it will not come on because there is no water into the tank. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to bring you here, show you what happens when there is water in the tank. So let's say there is dirty water need to be pumped out. Let me get my flashlight here. So as the dirty water rises and lifts this float, you can hear it clicking on the other side of the machine. What that is, it is the clutch on your pump out. The only way for this clutch, okay, let me bring this flashlight back on. This pump out system is equipped with a clutch. In other words, this belt can turn, but the pump out will not operate unless if you turn the APO or automatic pump out switch on. Now for safety, because we don't want that pump to run dry, the only time, it doesn't matter if the toggle switch lights up, but the only way for the clutch on the pump to engage, for the pump to run safe because there is water, if there is enough water inside of the tank to be pumped out. So I'm going to send my son on the other side with the camera. You'll be able to see what happens when I raise the float at the bottom, which basically tells you that we have enough water for it to be pumped out. As I'm raising it, you'll be able to hear the clutch clicking. All right, we got through with that. Now, in order to put the recovery tank top back on, let's say you did the cleanup. To put it back on is, again, simple. Have this hose raised as you're sliding the recovery tank top on is just dropping in place. You'll bring this filter, put it inside of the filter box, and in order to connect it to the filtration box, make sure the top part of the filter sits, because we just moved the tank a little bit because it is not bolted. So in order to connect the filter, you want to make sure these two parts, or these two part of the union, they're lined up perfect. In other words, you can't put the filter on with one side to be closer than the other side. So it has to be an even distance. How do you know you have done a good job as far as lining it up? It's simple. Your union should go on without any fight. Now we're going to take the camera to the front. So we're done with the tank. We come to the front of the tank. This is where you connect your vacuum hoses. If you notice, it says inspect and clean ports as needed, because as you pulling in dirty water and fibers, some of the fibers may get the area in here clogged up, which is going to be, as a result of it, will be loss of vacuum, which is always good. When you clean your tank, use the garden hose and start flushing some of these two vacuum ports towards the tank, allowing the fibers to fall into the tank to kind of keep them clean. This little box right here is where your chemical jugs goes. You can put rinse or any kind of chemical in here, which of course later on we're going to get to the point of how we do the chemical injection with our meter. Right now we're basically concentrating on the tank. This bottom features is basically your manual pump out. In other words, let's say you don't want to use your pump out on the Dragon, you just want to manually pump it quickly. This is where you connect a short hose to it and have it in any area that's environmentally allowed for you to pump out or drain the dirty water. By lifting this lever upward, the water is going to start draining out from the tank and of course get the tank empty. Now, if you notice, there is a T and it's connected to this elbow, we're gonna start following this hose and see where it's gonna go. Taking the camera around, I think it should come from the back. If you notice, it's gonna come around here, but let's go from the back of the system in. This is the same hose. Let me turn my flashlight on. This is the same hose that was connected to the front end of the tank, which is going to eventually end up to the pump out. In other words, the water could be either manually drained out of the tank, or it could be simply pumped out by your automatic pump out system. Let's go to the front end of the machine. So we're done with the tank. We're gonna get to some of the features in the front. Again, in order to have any kind of electric devices on this machine come on, key must be on. With the key off, the whole entire system is off. So as I'm turning the key on, I can turn my APO on, and of course, if there is water in the tank, the APO system will engage and start operating. This is what turns my pressure pump on. Again, where is the pressure pump? We're gonna go and find it. Pressure pump is the pump that creates PSI for you to be able to clean carpet. Again, flashlight out. This is your high pro pump, which basically creates pressure. And of course, there is a clutch over there. Same clutch system as this one right down here. In order for the clutch on the pump to come on, water must be present. Either connecting water to the front end of the machine. This is when you're going to be connecting garden hose or water hose directly from the building or the house that you're cleaning, or having the 480 gallon water tower in the back field. And of course, as you turn the freshwater pump on, the water comes in. If there is water available going into the pump, then you'll be able to hear the pump clutch engage. In other words, any of these switches, if you happen to accidentally turn them on, they will not operate unless if the situation is safe for them to operate. In other words, your pressure pump with water present, it will start operating. It doesn't matter if the toggle switch lights up or not. Same thing for the APO. If there is dirty water into the tank, the APO system will operate. Right next to it here is your chemical meter, which if you notice, there is a small knob here. In next videos that we're going to be recording and showing you how to operate it, you'll be able to see how I do the priming of this chemical meter, how to operate it. If you notice, inside there is a small ball, which I don't know if you can see with the camera. Right. Of course, by unscrewing this counterclockwise, the ball can go up to 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 gallons per hour, injecting chemical from this bucket that's going to be in here through the machine to come to you to do the cleaning. Right next to it is a pressure regulator, which basically the word pressure has been abbreviated to press. It stands for pressure. The pressure regulator is really simple to operate. As you turn the knob clockwise, you'll be able to see the pressure go up. As you turn it to the left counterclockwise, the pressure would drop. Now, if you notice, we have designed a gauge right here next to the pressure gauge. There is, of course, another gauge up here for pressure, but this is just for you to have a much easier way of adjusting your pressure. These two gauges, they show same pressure. So instead of looking up here and adjusting it, because this machine is going to be inside of a Isuzu truck kind of high from the ground, it is going to be kind of hard for you to look in here. That's why we put you additional gauge here for you to be able to adjust your pressure exactly where you want it. Let's say 600 for carpet, or 1100 for tile and grout, and 1800 to 2000 psi to do power washing. Now coming again towards the front end of the machine, The upper section here, this is your pressure gauge. Again, this pressure gauge is same as this one. That's the right eye of the Dragon. The left eye is your vacuum gauge. Right now the vacuum needle is resting at 0. More suction you create, more this needle is going to start rising and show more buildup of suction on your blower. Normally we don't recommend this machine to run past anywhere from 12 to 14 inch of mercury, which I train you in the next video. Coming to the lower panel, you're going to see your ignition key, off, on, start, off, on, start. Again, off, on, start. Then there is a red light here. It basically shows low oil, but once you crank the engine and start the engine, it should go off. However, if the red light remains on, do not run the machine. Stop. There is low oil in the engine that needs to be filled. Right next to the ignition switch, there is a choke handle, which to the right is closed, to the left is open. We're going to get to this on our training video. We're going to show you how to run the machine. Just right now, I want you to observe all the information that I'm putting out. So this is your choke handle. This is your throttle handle, which basically, if you notice, there is a little emblem here. Throttle for the slow and rabbit for the fast. As you move the throttle to the left, you're going to see in the future videos, your engine is going to start speeding up. Right below it, of course, not to forget, this is your oil filter, which is I'll bring it up in the service video that we're going to post for you, how to do your services. Below your oil filter is your tachometer. What this one does, when the machine is off, it shows you how many hours or minutes this machine has run. Right now, if you notice, it shows number 5. That means this machine has only operated 5 minutes. As you turn the engine on and start starting the engine, you'll be able to see that this number will change into the speed of the engine, which again, we're going to get to that in the next videos of training you how to run the machine. Coming down here, this is your temperature gauge. Basically displays the temperature of your machine, of the burner. It's the temperature of the water that comes to you to do the cleaning. Coming to the far left, there is 3 indicator lights. Once you turn the water onto the machine from the garden hose, your green light automatically lights up. This means your pump is on. So if I turn the key on and I turn my pump on, it will not light up. Why? Because there is no water. So once you give water to the machine, you're going to see the pump light comes on. That means the pressure pump on the top, the hyper pump that I refer to, is operating. So we're going to go ahead and shut this off. The yellow light means you left your key on. This way you don't drain your battery. We come to the far left. This is your freshwater pump, the 12 DC pump, how to operate it, which basically, again, by turning the key on. This is your freshwater pump right here, which is operated by the toggle switch in the front. Of course, if you don't need to use your freshwater pump, simply shut it off. This one basically is an extra wiring that we left for you. Maybe later you want to add some lights inside of your vehicle for nighttime. I've created the wiring for you so you can connect to it. This is where you fill your freshwater tank. And if you need to fill this tank up, if you notice right now the tank has about 330 or 40 some gallons of water in it. But in order to